Welcome to the increment. Upon completion of this lecture, you will know what is the increment, understand what is a potentially shippable product increment, and you will know why you deliver potentially shippable product every sprint. The final Scrum artifact is the product increment, and some people call it potentially shippable increment or PSI or potentially shippable product increment, but Jeff Sutherland calls it increment, and it represents the sum of all product backlog items completed during a sprint and all previous sprints. But why potentially? The key to the increment is that the team adheres to their agreed definition of done. This means that the increment could be shipped if the product owner wants to ship it. There is no additional work to be done on it, hence the reason many people add potentially shippable on the name. The increment must be ready to ship and the product owner decide on whether or not to ship it. Now, who will deliver a product increment? The teams can gather feedback fast and accelerate their creative process by providing users with a working product. To achieve the feedback loop every sprint, the team delivers an increment at each sprint review. Now, how to create the product increment? All essential activities such as analysis, design, build, integration, and testing will be performed by the team during the sprint to create a working product increment. Potentially, not completely, as shown in the figure. This combined approach has the advantage of validating the assumptions rapidly that are made when creating product features. In Scrum, we generally work on one feature at a time, but not in a phase, so we will be creating a valuable product increment by the end of sprint, only a few but not the complete product features. That increment should be integrated and tested with all earlier development features, or else is not considered as done. For instance, the features of increment 1 should be included in the increment 2 as illustrated on this picture. This gives us feedback on the recently developed features within the context of already developed features and also helps us to view the product more in depth than we might otherwise have. So we get feedback on the sprint results, which enables us to adapt. We can then decide which features to work on in upcoming sprint or change the process of building the next set of features. Sometimes we might see that the increment is not as great as it could be. In such cases, we can plan to rework for a future sprint within the context of our promise to iterative development and continuous improvement. Scrum does not want us to define a fixed set of iterations. The continuous flow of feedback will direct us to do a significant and effective number of iterations while building up the product incrementally. The team work to deliver the increment at the end of each Scrum sprint. But before call it a shippable product, the product owner must check to see if it aligns with the team's definition of done, which we will cover later on in this masterclass. As a Scrum team mature, it is expected that their definition of increment expands to include more stringent criteria for higher quality. Any one product should have a definition of increment that is a standard for any work done on it. To ensure functioning products at the end of each sprint, it is important to remember the following key points. So each increment should interface seamlessly with all prior increments and stand alone as a distinct addition to value to the product. While more than one increment may be created in a sprint, all work must meet the definition of done to be considered complete. Each increment represents a concrete steps towards realizing the product goal. The team should be made up of cross-functional members who possess all the skills needed to fulfill the sprint backlog. Quality product backlog items with explicit definition of ready and done are present. Definition of done is the commitment of the increment. And the product owner can vertically slice backlog into functional aspects and prioritize it based on the customer value.